let me go. I always forget something. Let me go turn the light on so I'm not so dark. Alright, so today I've decided that we're going to go back to our follow the tutorial series and we're going to do one of these. So I picked, instead of doing one of Pausley's, because a lot of his, they're good. They're really good if you want to know something specific, but it's not something you can necessarily follow along with. Um, it's kind of like information about the path system and how to make it work, or information about different landscaping tools. Like, it's not really, you don't really build something when you follow it. So we're gonna try Rudi Rennkamel's. Um, so he has a series of 3. Let me get these up here. Um, where is it? Okay, so he has a series of 5. I count really well. Um, there we go. And so we're gonna follow and try to do all 5 of them today. It should take the full, like, normal 2 hours. I think these are going to be a little more advanced than the very basic tutorials, but I think that's good because I think that's the skill set that I'm trying to develop. I can build a habitat. It just looks like a square with a shelter, though. You know, this one's a little better, but they're pretty flat and they're pretty unexciting. So we're gonna try this out and see how it goes. We're gonna put it back here. If I have to delete some space so I have enough room, then we will. Um, and we're gonna pause the game because I don't need all of that coming up. Alright, so stop moving.
Welcome to Planet Zootorial. This is an interactive tutorial series where you will be able to create this in the end. We are going to go there via landscaping, pathing, barriers, buildings and also foliage, and you will be able to build alongside me with the blueprint provided in the description down below. But now let's jump into the episode and have some fun. Okay, here we go. We are in episode number 1. This is landscaping, and I really highly recommend to start over with landscaping, because landscaping is that one thing that you don't want to do afterwards, because that's definitely not going to work out. You have so many issues afterwards, but I'm gonna explain this in a bit. So, first things first, let's open the terrain tab, which is down here to the bottom right part of your user interface. Click terrain, and you have actually a few options on the left hand side. Let's quickly go through them before starting. So with the sculpting, we have terrain stamp tool, painting, and water. We come to this in a bit, but let's start over with the terrain stamp tool, because I figured this one is actually not too bad to get a really nice, decent results of yeah, these kind of important things like the preparation for pathing. So what you can do with these boxes, you can press the key X and then you get this gizmo, and you can move this box of terrain wherever you want. I highly recommend to go always with some kind of very narrow height, because that makes you able to kind of build nice little shapes also for their path. So what I want to do, I want to make sure that I have a little incline for my guests to go up a little hill area where they can have a better view of the, you know, final habitat. But I don't want to have the ugly stairs, so this is why I'm using this thing over here. And this little hill piece should be somewhere over here. So I'm going to prepare this by simply clicking and dragging it over. So this is my little platform over here where I want to make the guests go. To get them up there, we need a little bit of a ramp, and this is something you can really nicely create with this tool over here. So you can see I'm just moving it down until you have this area over here very nicely meandering into each other, actually a nice little ramp. So if I press this down, you can see it's easy, and you just want to drag this down until you get this orangey, yellowish kind of hint over here that you came to the ground level. Just click again. And there you can see it's a wonderful, nice ramp over here. Obviously, this doesn't look so nice, but we're gonna take care of this later. So, as this is done, I want to make sure that my overall area is lowered down just a little bit. So therefore, I'm going to the sculpting tools this time. I would actually recommend to go always with a less big size, because it kind of, you can see the middle circle always is where the pressure is the highest, and the outer circle tells you how much of an area is affected by the manipulating in total. So what I want to do is I just want to make sure that I just drag this down a little bit. So this is how deep I want to go. And then I highly recommend to use another tool, which is flatten to foundation, which always levels the how much of an area is affected by the manipulating in total. So what I want to do is I just want to make sure that I just drag this down a little bit. So this is how deep I want to go. And then I highly recommend to use another tool, which is flatten to foundation, which always levels the terrain to the level where you press. You can see the higher I go, you can see how the circle goes a little bit more into the landscape or into the terrain. What I want to do is I want to go to the lowest point and adjust the whole area to it. As you can see, simply moving it over, and you create this little hole in here. So I want to go a bit more over to this hand side, and then we are basically done. This is it. I don't want to make this habitat too crazily big, but I just want to create a little bit of an area. What I want to do, I want to have some water here as a natural border to this hand side. I don't want to make this water kind of too, too kind of edgy. Therefore, I'm going to now use the pull tool, and I'm going to lower down the intensity and also the size to make sure that I have a bit more control over what I'm doing. So I'm going to just kind of, I'm just painting a little bit of smooth areas next to these areas. As you can see, I'm just nicely going over. Don't do too much pressure on it. It's a little bit like working with clay. Be a little bit careful what you do, because this will later on help you to make this look more realistic, and also don't destroy your stuff. As always in Planet Zoo or in Planet games, you can always use Control Z to undo your settings. Let me just show you. If I press Control Z, you can see your manipulating is undone. However, I want to add that this is a bit tricky, because it's not with pieces. You have usually, I think it's 65 steps you can go back. This is the maximum of undo you can do. This is a little bit of an issue, because the terrain manipulating is not one click equals one step. It's a bit more. So depending how much you do, one manipulating can be counted as more redo and undo in comparison. So just make sure that you kind of create these lovely little smoother edges around here. And if you're basically done and you're happy with the result, you can go in and smooth it out even more, because there's actually a pretty nice smooth tool. And this is what we're going to use to make it even more nice looking. As you can see, I'm just smoothing it out ever so slightly over here. I wouldn't recommend to use it from the beginning, because it always uses the terrain available to kind of level it out. So if you use this too early and you use this kind of having a big gap, I'm going to show this over here. This is why I left it open. This tool has a lot more to work with, you can see, and the transition doesn't get that nice, because it can only equal what is available to be equal. It can't get such a nice ramp in here, because there's simply no terrain, no voxel available. This is why you would then need to kind of paint this a bit more like so, and then you can smooth it afterwards, and you can see the transition is turning out to look a lot smoother and nicer. But this is for the beginning. I don't wanna have this area so it looks like kind of weird over here. So what we want to do is we want to kind of create this like a more natural border over here. So we just kind of paint this in so that this looks like as if this little hill over here was created with the habitat in mind already. I don't want to make this too complicated, So this is what we ended up with the ramp over here. We can make this look nicer later on with scenery and stuff, but for the moment I'm pretty happy. So the only thing I don't want to have this way is, as you can see, I kind of created this border over here to be in this direction, but I want to make sure that this kind of follows the line of this lake down here, this is not going to be a total lake, but this is kind of where the lake is sitting, at least partly. And so I want to have this kind of platform over here go actually until over this crest over here. I want to really have this filled in, this little area over here. So this is where we're going to use the flatten to foundation tool again. So just go in here, make sure that you do make it as small as you can, maybe not that small though, because this takes too long, and then you can just paint over the edge over here. As you can see, I'm just painting over and then you can follow this line a bit nicer. And I just want to make sure that this ramp goes all over until over here. Now, what you can see from the side, we created a little bit of an overhanging cliff, which sometimes can look actually pretty nice. This is what we are also doing over here. We're going to make this overhanging cliff just like that. So here we go, just a bit more, looks kind of nice. And again, I'm using the pull tool with a bit of a bigger size to paint this and smooth it out ever so slightly. So here we go. I want to keep this the way it is, although this might be a little bit too much of a lip down here. Let's kind of create a bit more of a connection, just not make it too ugly. Here we go. And you can always smooth it out so you don't have these kind of ugly edges over here. Pretty nice, doesn't it? Looks pretty nice. There was a word missing in that sentence. Anyways, so this is created. I think we can be pretty happy with it. And now the next thing we're gonna do is basically create the habitat where they live. As it is in Planet Zoo, you need to plan out everything before you put in the water. So next step is planning out where the actual land is for our red pandas, our fluffy little friends. So we're creating a bit of a bigger size over here for the flattened to foundation. I want to make this a bit more lower than the actual height of the terrain. I'm gonna tell you why in a bit. And I'm gonna paint this all over here. So this is basically the land part of our lovely little friends. So we are nearly done already. So what I want to do is I want to smooth this a bit more out over here, because I feel like this might be a bit too edgy, and I want to have like a little bit of a thing. I think pandas can't swim as far as I remember, so we can keep this in natural water. If I'm wrong over here, which might be, we will have to adjust things later, but this will be then also part of the tutorial, because in the last episode, in the 5th one, when you finish it all off, there are some detailings done, and this is also the foliage and detailing episode, where I can show you how you can fill in gaps and little bits nicely without putting too much effort in. However, I'm quite happy with how it looks right now, so I want to test and put the water in. Here you go. Water is over here, the last bit in here, and you have two options, the calm water and the rough water. I'm going to show you quickly what this is. So with the water, you're going to the edge of a volume. So as you can see, I can drag it even higher over here. The blue line indicates which is the highest point of the water, where the water level will sit. Sometimes if the water volume is getting bigger, you will have a white line first. This white line is mentioning that the game is still calculating. This is because it's volumetric, and so it calculates how much water in there will be. So if you have like a way bigger lake, it will take a time until the line gets blue, because, you know, if it's blue, you can click and then it's there. So now let's stop talking and do it actually. Here we go, and you can see the little lake sits in here. So this is the calm water, and we also can create rough water. Let's do this again. Here you can see the big difference is actually the texture of the water. You can see it's a bit more, it does actually move a lot more. You have all these little waves in here. It depends a little bit on what is your favorite appeal of the water. I like this quite a bit because the reflections are a bit more, but sometimes the calm water is a bit nicer when you have like standing water and not a river. For a river, I would highly recommend to take the rough water, but I think we are going to take the calm water over here. Now, one thing to keep in mind, as I said, is you can't manipulate the land where the water was. As you can see, I can do whatever I want. It doesn't work. If I go a bit more over here, I can manipulate the terrain again. So everything has to be done before you go on and do the water. So this is what we did basically. Now, this is pretty much done now. What I want to do now is I want to create a little bit of a hill in the middle, which looks a bit more like a rock, so a bit more edgy, a bit more sculpted, you know, because that's the last thing I want to show you in this landscaping episode. So you have learned basically everything about the landscaping. So I created this little hill, and now you have to use the tools a bit more creatively. So the flatten to foundation tool can be used pretty nicely to create different layers of terrain. So for example, if you want to have this one look like a bit more of a you know, cliffy rock, then you can use this on various heights and just create these overhanging little areas. Use the pull and push tool to create different heights if you want to have another layer, and use this again to flatten this to foundation. Here you can see now we have a lovely little kind of rock appealing thing. It almost looks like a bit of a pride rock thing. I don't want to do this, but has different levels. Now you can go in and just work around a little bit with the chisel tool, for example. The chisel tool, as the name says, is helping you to manipulate the terrain a bit more like in 3D sculpting, or actually again clay. That's my most favorite example. You can actually, you know, work around the edges. There's no real explanation how to do it, because you just have to get used to the tool and kind of learn it by yourself. It works like a chisel, as if you would expect it. Sometimes it's a bit hard to see because of the sun, so you have to redirect the sun into the area so you can see it. For example, that's now in the shadow. I would highly recommend always to use the slider to drag the sun around until you have some sun over here. So that's basically what we can get, and then the chiseling is also working a bit better. Always helps to move the sun even more to just see how your edges and corners look, because they cast shadow, and this will give you an idea. If you are a little bit more lazy and you don't want to do this by hand, you can use the roughen option. The roughen option automatically creates rough terrain, as you can see. It really is like a bit of a coincidence what kind of things are happening, but yes, it's just kind of a nice little thing, but I don't use it that often, to be honest, because I don't like the fact that I don't have control over what I do, so I mostly do it myself. So now as this is done, it looks a bit weird because this is all grass, right? Okay, so the last thing we are doing, we are actually putting some painting on. As you know, you will use this later on a lot more for your animals, but sometimes you can also use it to make things look nice. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that the area around here looks as if you would expect it. Where it is steeper, you don't want to have grass, so you go in and create a lot of rock texture first. I always recommend to just paint crazily over it until you're basically happy with the first appeal. So I'm also going around the edges, as you can see. Here we go, we have a lot of rock. And then always use different kind of textures. Always play around with the intensity, because that helps a lot with your shading. You can always mix them together. So don't always go for 100%, because this will always create like a very unnatural looking texture, because it kind of blends in completely, which is not realistic. So you always want to play around between 50 and 80, and sometimes to just give it an effect, go even lower. Then you can just paint in here. As you can see, I'm just varying this stuff, but you can see it's blending a little bit, it's overlapping the other texture. So just play around until you're happy. And then you can also use different textures to just kind of create a bit of a little bit of a texture, just brighter, darker, whatever you want. So I don't want to have this grass on top of here too bright, so I'm just using the sand to go down, and then I decrease the intensity and use the grass again to bring in the green, as you can see. But it creates a different green than what you have down here, and just make sure that you have this everywhere you want. So you can see it's looking a lot nicer right now. I'm quite happy with it turned out, and let's put just some sand to the riverbed down here, so that's where you want to have it. And one thing I forgot is, because this kind of created this like soil heavy area, I definitely want to make sure that we paint this area entirely in grass again, because this will be painted later on. It always helps to first of all make yourself an idea of what you want to do, and then just paint very roughly and you know, just basically just a basic paint in here, and then later on you can still adjust things once you have foliage, and it always helps to get a better idea. So yeah, that's basically what you can expect from the terraforming. One last thing I would highly recommend is to check out is the paint option. So if you go to sculpting and then you go to painting, there are actually more versions. I'm sorry, sculpting and smooth. We have different options in paint. You can use sampled, which is then using the last paint you had selected in here. You can also use the way you selected. Sorry, that's the one you had. I always use sampled, because sampled is the one that it takes from over here. So if I lower this down, you can see it has no issues with the terrain or the texture, because it basically takes the texture that is available right where you click. If I change this to use selected, you can see no matter where I go, it paints the rock, because the rock is selected over here. If I change this to long grass and go back to my smooth tool, it creates long grass again. So I would always use I would always use the auto paint or sampled auto paint. Always creates the paint that is in the map, so it will create grass on a flat surface, and if you go to a steep surface, it will use rock, for example. I always use the sampled one, And that's basically it. So yeah, I think this is all you need to know about landscaping. That's gonna make for a very boring thumbnail. I guess I'll take the thumbnail of the finished one and just highlight the terrain. However, guys, this is it for the first episode. As I said, there will be 4 more episodes. I'm continuing this now completely in one go, so this is a very good tutorial for you. Again, reminder, if you want to build along, just download the habitat. I'm going to provide this for you guys so you can work with it. And yeah, make sure to click that playlist as well, because I don't want to upload them all at the same point. Blame this to YouTube, because then people wouldn't get a notification, so I will spread this across the next 3 days. Episode 1 will be here today, and the next one are following very soon. So hope you enjoyed this one. Leave some feedback down below. If you have any more questions regarding landscaping, make sure to drop them down. I'm more than happy to answer them. And then let's do the next thing. Next episode number 2 is pathing. So see you there and have a good time, guys. Bye. Alrighty, guys, thank you for watching this video. I really do appreciate that. As always, make sure to check out also my social media. Hello everyone, and we'll...
Oh, did it really go back to 1? No, it says 2. Okay, for a second there, I thought it went back to the beginning of the first episode when I skipped forward. So, I don't know. I think it looks kind of like what he did. My rock is a little wonky. I'm not happy with it, but maybe we'll fix that in another episode here coming up. I think overall this is going okay, and I didn't know that I could slope this like we did, so I did learn something, and that's exciting. And that makes a big difference, because I used to always just kind of like try to make it even, and it just never works. It really doesn't work well. Alright, so let's go on. We're going to keep going like this, and we're going to go on to episode number 2.
Welcome to Planet Zootorial. This is an interactive tutorial series where you will be able to create this in the end. We are going to go there via landscaping, pathing, barriers, buildings, and also foliage, and you will be able to build alongside me with the blueprint provided in the description down below. But now let's jump into the episode and have some fun. Hello again everyone, and welcome to the second Zootorial. This is pathing today. In the last episode we have done the landscaping of this wonderful area over here, and you will be now pleased hopefully with this episode of pathing. As many of the fans of the Planet franchise will know, pathing is a little bit tricky. let's put it tricky. I think this is fine. In this 5-episode series of tutorials, you will be able to create this. And if we are done, you will hopefully have learned about the major things that you need to know to be a master, at least in terms of the raw tools in Planet Zoo. So now let's get started with the pathing. So first of all, let's discuss the 3 options of pathing. We have again that the interface is to the bottom right of your screen, just next to the terrain we worked with in the last episode. And now we use the path. So you have a lot of control over the path in this toolbox down here on the right hand side. But there is first of all basically 3 different types of paths. You have the path, which is the normal guest path everyone can use. You have the queues, which you will use for your transport rides, where basically people can queue up obviously to get into the ride. If it's a bit more busy, you want to make a longer queue and whatever. For the theme park fans, this is nothing too new. If we look into the next one, which is a fan favorite for this game, it's the staff passing. This is a path that is only allowing your staff members to reach certain areas faster and also not seen or basically invisible from your guests, and this is what you want to make sure with the building. So we keep this in mind for today's video as well. Let's keep a little look into the option to the down right side here. So first of all, we have the angle snap, which is what you can expect. If you build a path, let me just quickly show you before we build. There is an option that you can move this completely free, 360 degrees. There is no limiting factor in here. You can do whatever you want. If you go into an angle snap, it will rotate this one in 15 degrees steps. If you want to be less creative or whatever, or less heavy steps, go to 30 degrees and so on. The least you can do is 0, which doesn't do anything, which is weird because you can go to 11 degrees, which is the lowest you can set. Yeah, that's basically the angle snap. You can increase or decrease the length. You can see if I increase this, one piece is going to be quite long, I should say. But yeah, let's go to the... I would always recommend to work with the shortest one anyways. It's a lot safer, to be honest. And then you can do the width option, which is basically creating a wider or more narrow path. As you can see, this is 10 meters wide, 7 meters, and it goes all the way down to 4 meters of width. This is kind of where you have to juggle around if your area will be more busy or less busy. It's a little bit, you know, down to yourself if you want to work with it or not. But I would always recommend to be in busy areas. You want to have like wider paths, and in only areas where people go from one point to the other, where on the whole path is nothing to really, you know, look at or, you know, stand for a while, where people are only moving. You can also use more narrow path. Anyways, this is just a little bit of a basic thing. You can build the path completely free, as I'm doing right now over here. But to create bigger plazas, for example, which we're going to do in a second, you can use the align to grid option. What it does is basically it takes this one piece you are selecting over here, and it creates a grid from the path. It always uses the direction information from the path you've set down. This one, as you can see, is now creating this square-ish grid over here. If we build, first of all, and you just declick this to do it again, if we just first of all build another piece that goes into this direction, and we do the same thing again, you can see the orientation of the grid changes according to the main direction of your path. This is important to keep in mind when you build these plazas. Once you have the right direction you want to use, you just click on here and you can basically paint this grid as you would expect. Pretty easy, nothing too special. It is something really useful when you want to create bigger areas. As you can see, this is now, you can go as big as you want and do some kind of stuff with it. But before we use this, let's kind of first of all delete this thing and go through all the options. So the next one on the right hand side over here, you have different options that are not really directly affecting the way it looks, but it affects the way it works. So we have the flatten terrain option. That means, I hope that this doesn't flatten terrain option. That means, I hope that this doesn't do the trick. It will do. If I click here now, it automatically flattens the terrain to this option, and that looks kind of super ugly. We don't want to have this. We don't have. And if you click, there is automatically created a support below that path. If you want to be creative yourself and you don't want to have this one, you can just easily click nope and click again. This support is gone, and you can do whatever you want, and sometimes really nice, but it also makes up for something to struggle with once you want to do your own fencing. It might be a lot quicker now. So please make sure if you want to participate in this build, because the path is the only thing that you won't have when you download this blueprint. You can download this and make this interactive, but the thing is there is no path, so it will be highly recommendable to watch especially this episode to make sure that you build the path exactly like I do in the blueprint. So what I want to do, first of all, I'm starting off with the little entrance over here, and I'm just building my way up into this area. I want to kind of have the 9 meters wide path. Here we go. Now, I don't want to go entirely to the corner. I want to be kind of over here, I think. But now what I do, and this is very important, I am creating this area first, because otherwise I will create some weird corners and stuff. So what I do, I delete this and hold down Control, which lets you build this without connecting. If you hold down Control, you can create a new piece. So I want to create a new piece over here, and now I deactivate the angle snap to be able to go very, very tightly to this area. So here we go. This is nice. Just want to make sure that this is going around. Now I wanted to have this a bit more plaza-ish looking. So as I said, we can now go in and use the grid. But as you will see, there is something not working. We will fix this in a bit. But first of all, I don't want to make this plaza too big, so I'm fine with having this size. So you can see it's nicely done. You have a little bit of a plaza over here, but now we need to make this look a lot more organic. So I don't want to have this ugly edge over here, and I also don't want to have this ugly edge over here. So what I'm doing is I'm smoothing the path of the plaza out. You can do this by basically going into the corner over here. You have to move it in until you create exactly the more or less 45 degrees junction over here. Just create the junction and right delete it again. So the junction is created. Now right click on this piece again, and you can see the path automatically smoothed out. Now we have a lot more organic looking path over here. This one over here is a lot better because we need this to create this wonderful area on top here. Now before we do this, I'm using this top area and create another little plaza. So let's do a smaller piece. I want to go with the smallest available, so I have a bit more control of the grid. So what I want to do is I want to kind of test, first of all, as how close I can go to this crest on the right hand side. So it seems that this is the closest I can get. So let's go and select this middle part over here and just build one. So this defines in which direction our plaza will go. Now use the align to grid and now build basically whatever you can on top of here. Go as much into this area as you can. So this is looking kind of nice. Now we do the same trick as we did down there with the 45-degree smoothing option. The same one goes over here. Just create one here, delete it again, and just do the same over here. This gets a bit more finicky. Maybe you need to build this first and then do it there and delete this piece again. Here we go. Now this is how it looks. I don't want to have it this way, so I leave this open and smooth this out a bit more to create an even closer connection to this area over here. I don't want to have it too close because there can be a bit more landscaping or maybe some of the notification billboards and stuff. So I'm pretty happy with how it looks, and I'm also happy with this thing over here because we can hide this away. So this is the lovely plaza we have on top. Now we need to connect this, right? So what we do, we basically go and first of all, you can see there is a bit of an issue here. And this looks weird. I don't even know what this is. Maybe I wasn't too careful with landscaping. So it always is helpful to use the smooth tool again. Here we go. Just smooth this out. Now this looks fine. It doesn't look that there is anything in particular. But now, as you can see, there is a bit of a wobbly space down here. I'm also willing to smooth this out a bit more. So here we go. Don't do it too much though, because it will create weird edges. Now, what we will do, we will use not this connection or this connection, because it will always create some weird faces. I do put one in the middle first, and this will be the thing I will use to create this. So one here and the same down here. Okay, this seems to be a bit of a problem anyways. So there are two options to get rid of this issue. First option is to go in here and try to create another area over here, which seems not to work. So the other option could be, we could try to make okay, it doesn't work that way because of the water volume. So we have to work with what we have to work with. This is sometimes how it is with passing. This is a live tutorial. I'm not doing this 10 times. So what we want to do, we connect this, and I now choose to use a bit of a wider path here to make sure that the connection looks a bit nice. So let's just move this very carefully in. There we go. Here we go. Just a bit more. Where's the connection? This seems to be the best we can get. All right, done. So this is done. It's kind of a nice transition, I have to admit. It's not looking too bad. So basic things are done. Now what we have to do next is we have to make sure that everything is in the right texture, because I don't want to have this texture in this area. It's for the red pandas. This is a more Asian looking one. So what I want to do is I want to have this kind of what is this even called, log rounds path on top of here. Just click and change it. I don't want to have it on this way down here anyways. I want to have the more or less like soil path going up the hill. And this area down here might be nicer looking in like red brick area. So this is what I'm painting it like. So here we go. That looks a lot nicer already. So we have the path done. You can always use also the path to get some highlights in. So if you want to make sure that this looks like a bit of a nicer transition, you can also use these textures. But I want to go with my like a little bit more natural looking path. Talking of natural though, there is actually a natural path option in here. You can see there are in a total 4 variants of it. 2 of each have no texture creating thing and one with. The difference, I'm gonna quickly show it to you in here. So if you create the natural path, it basically only has these outlines over here, which you can't get rid of. No matter if you have curb activated or deactivated, it doesn't really change a thing. And it uses the terrain which is below the path. Anyways, if you choose this one, it automatically creates some kind of soil down there as if there people would be running. You don't really have that much control over which they take. They always use the predefined from the map. So that's how this one looks. And there's a second version which is using log kind of pieces on the sides. I don't really have a preference of them, to be honest. You can see that there is also another one with again the same texture painting option, but yeah. So actually you only have a difference of the 2 railing pieces or the 2 fencing pieces and the different variants of with soil or without soil, but I don't want to have them anyway. So this is how you can create some nice looking natural paths. Maybe we could use it over here. but honestly, I like my path more. So here we go, we've done this, awesome. And the only thing we need to do before this episode's already done, we need to create the staff area, and therefore I'm willing to create my path here a little bit further, so I know where to go. You know, this is then where I want to go, just to make sure where my area is leading and I know where to connect my staff pathing. So this is the habitat. People look from over here and from over here, so I want to put my backstage area here. This is what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to quickly define where my backstage area is. And this is going to be done by just putting down my staff path. And I want to have this, I think I want to have this starting over here. What I use is align to grid to make sure that I have a nice area, but first of all define which direction the grid goes, as we have learned already, and I'm just going to create a little bit of a plaza here. So that's it, nothing more than this, and the only thing I need to do now is connect this to the main path, which I'm doing over here. Yeah, well, I think we are basically set for this episode. We have kind of created everything you need to know. The only thing we haven't created is a staircase, but I have shown you how this works, and you know, that's the only thing that is not in here in total. You could have done this here with the stair, obviously, but I wanted to have this naturally done because this kind of lines up better with the terraforming tutorial we have done. Cool. So as this is done, I think it's time to round this episode of Pathing up. Again, if you guys have questions about pathing in total or in general, just put them down in the comment section down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. And also make sure to click into the playlist, because then you will be able to watch all the episodes of this tutorial. If you are very early on, might not be released right now, because I can't upload them all at once, because basically YouTube doesn't allow me to send out the notifications then, and well, you know, don't want to bother with you. Hope you enjoyed this wonderful tutorial, and yeah, let's create some more. And the next episode is about barriers, first of all, barriers and fencing. So let's do this in the next episode. Hope to see you there, and until then, have a great time, guys, and bye bye. Alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video, I really do appreciate that. As always, make sure to check out also my social media channels. You can find me everywhere under @Rennkamel. Also big thanks to the crew, you can see it on the left hand side right now. And as always, if you want to see more, you click that card on the top right. And if you want to stick around because you like the stuff you've just saw, whatever, you know what I mean, just click the sub button, which is to the bottom right of the screen right now. But everything else I can say is have a great time and see you next time. Bye guys.
Google Fi, a phone plan by Google. Only pay for the data you use with Google Fi's flexible plan. So when you're on Wi-Fi a lot and don't need as much data, you'll only pay $10 per gigabyte used. Sign up at fi.google.com.
We all have people we love to love. The one who has always been your biggest fan. The one who makes memories out of every moment. The one who laughs at all your silly jokes. The one who can turn anything into an adventure. The world could use extra love this Valentine's Day. So find the perfect ways to celebrate all the people you love at Hallmark Gold Crown.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Planet Zootorial. This is an interactive tutorial series where you will be able to create this in the end. We are going to go there via landscaping, pathing, barriers, buildings, and also foliage, and you will be able to build alongside me with the blueprint provided in the description down below. But now let's jump into the episode and have some fun. Hey there, and welcome to the third Zootorial. We are in, as I said, episode number 3. This episode is all about barriers and fencing and habitats in general, creating them. So, in today's episode, we are basically, building the fencing for our red penna habitat. The final result will look like this. And now, as we are creating this, in the first 2 episodes, we have dealt with pathing and landscaping. So if you're not very familiar with this and you still want to do it, make sure to click the first 2 episodes first, because this will help you to create this. If you want to create this alongside me, make sure to download the link of this habitat down below in the description. Put this right next to you, to the left-hand side or right-hand side, and just build alongside with me, so it makes it even easier for you to understand how this works. So before we go on with the barrier, we need to kind of think of a few things to keep in mind. First of all, I created a natural barrier by using the water. So where the water is, we don't really need a hard fencing. I want to keep it as open as possible to make the people look at this area. I'm not even too sure if the pandas can swim, so maybe I have done a mistake over here, maybe even intentionally, who knows. So because maybe I want to show you something then in the end, so who knows, you know. Anyways, we are creating the fencing now, assuming that the pandas can't swim. What we want to do with the barriers is we want to first of all have a look into the barriers option. Anyways, this is in sandbox mode, therefore I do have all the options. If you play in career mode or franchise, you have to research a few of these options first. Let me just mention this. However, the mechanics basically all work the same. So cool. First of all, what do we have? We have a gate, we have a track airlock, we have a guest gate, and we have a wooden habitat gate, and we have a wooden track airlock. Quickly explained, this is the normal gate in metal and wood. No real big difference. This is where your staff members enter. Then you have the airlock for basically transport rides that can go inside and outside your habitats. And the guest gate will allow your guests to go into a habitat, which is pretty cool because you can make walk-in habitats. There are plenty of examples on this channel. Just type in walk-in habitat. You're gonna find some. Okay, cool. Now we have to define which kind of fencing we want. I want to have a wooden fence in the back, and I want to have a no fence in basically the front. So the question now is, how do we do no fence? And there's a wonderful option which is called the null fence. The null fence basically is invisible. Now, after trying a few things, I would highly recommend to always build with this concrete or the red brick wall, because this is the one you have at the very beginning. So I'm going to show you how I work with the red brick wall. The reason why I'm using the red brick wall is it basically allows you to do everything. The thing about this is it's watertight. It is you can make a nice roundish shape of it, and you can basically see it, which is a really important thing to keep in mind. So first things we want to do, we want to keep doing the back side of the habitat first, and I'm going to use this little raised area here as a guideline where I want to go. So let's kind of create this first. I want to start over here. And now, as you can see, it's a very, very short piece. I don't want to have it that short. So we have some options to the right-hand side. It's basically, as you have learned in the last episode, with the passing. So I'm not going to go too much into it here because it's somewhat similar. How you can do these things, you can change basically by clicking or some shortcuts. So for example, if you want to have angle snap, just hit spacebar, and I'm not clicking. I just hit spacebar, and you can see the angle snap is activated or deactivated. This is pretty handy if you want to create something very nice looking and very organic, or if you want to be some kind of OCD person who wants to go very straight, and in your dedicated angles, you use spacebar. And then you can change the type to straight sections or curved sections. So we always want to work with curved sections, and I want to have it a bit more long, which is, let's go to 10 meters. If you want to do this on your keyboard, you can do this basically by pressing the plus. Oh wait, is it working? It's not even, oh no, it's working. You have to press the, oh god, how I'm even explaining these options. It is the backslash key on your keyboard and the key on the right hand side, which is the accent or whatever. These two keys help you to increase and decrease the length on the go as a hotkey on your keyboard. So we don't want to play around too much with hotkeys right now. Let's go down to 8 meters though, and then create this one. You can see it's pretty easy. You can simply drag it like a kind of roller coaster in the days of Planet Coaster, and we're just basically painting or just drawing alongside our habitat. Now it's getting very important over here. We are going as close as possible to this area over here, to the wonderful pathing plaza, and then we just follow the line of our habitat. So as you can see, something is happening over here. The path or the kind of fence is not following our terrain. Why is this happening? So there is an option which allows you to change the way how your fence works. I kind of learned to use the flat top and editable bottom version, because this allows you to create wonderful viewing galleries. As you can see, to the bottom part of my fence right now, it adjusts to the terrain, but the top part is always staying at the right height line, which is very handy when you create habitats that have different kind of areas where people can look at. However, if you want to create this going higher over here, you have to change this basically to flat top. Sorry, for the other one, the undulating. This is then keeping the level of terrain and always kind of remains the same height, and so you can use it. Now we have to get a bit more creative too, just a bit more like this. You don't have to be that precise over here. You don't really need to be that precise, because this is only to paint a little bit outside of our habitat, because as we figured, we have the natural border with our water. Okay, so now let's connect this to this piece. Okay, the habitat borders are done, just as a basic version. Now, this looks ugly as hell, doesn't it? Right. Okay, so we have to change a few things. Before we do so, we want to know where our entrance is. And as we have done the facility area in the back here, we also want to have it here, right? That makes sense. So let's go back in. Wooden fence, wooden door might be the good option here. Let's put this, well, right over here. Okay, basically this is now a fully fledged habitat. The moment you put a door in and the moment the habitat has a fully finished, complete outer fence or habitat barrier, it is a working habitat. It's ready, as you can see. The moment I delete a piece, it's not ready. Now, if you want to change some things, you need to edit the barrier, which we just have done right now. You are in here, and this works as the coaster builder in Planet Coaster. If you're not familiar, you can actually drag and select multiple pieces, or you can just go in and adjust the height of these areas, as I did over here. Again, as always, Control Z is undo and redo. That helps a lot, basically. Always use it if you can. But now, as I said, I don't want to have this wall. I only use this wall because it is the most flexible one. Now, I want to change some areas. So what I said first, I wanted to have this area in the back. The whole area over here should be wood, because I think wood fits better. And I think I want to have it wood until this very part over here. So that's great. And I think we want to have a bit more wood until over here. Why not? Okay, cool. Now, the simplest way of doing it now is you have selected this area which you want to have like wood. Okay, just click wood. Boom, done. It's wood. This is, by the way, also the only way how you can make these wooden pieces bend, because by default, these pieces can't bend. I don't know why it does it, but if you use another fence first and then change it back to wood, you can get them bended, like very nicely rounded. Okay. Now 2 meters is a bit less, or maybe 1 meter 85 is a little bit less for our red fluffy pandas, because they can climb. I want to make this a bit higher. Let's go to 2 meters and 80. Not too high though. And I want to make sure that they can't climb it. Now, as we change this to wood, we get the option climb proof. This is adding some kind of barrier for them to climb this wall. Now we have to do this on only the inner side of our habitat. You need to have it both if you have 2 sides of the habitat for animals. We only have the inside here. So as you can see, there is now something added to this one. This is basically kind of an iron area where they can't climb over. Honestly, yes, some animals would be still able to climb it, but they couldn't make, like, you know, energy or whatever, like a kind of powered fence would be something very weird indeed. So yeah, I've created this, and they can't climb here. But now, what do we do with this ugly wall over here? We don't want this, right? We do want to have our natural water border over here. So we just select this area which we don't want, and simply drag over this little piece, as you can see, this little square over here, until you are in the area where you want, and then simply click the null fence. Boom. As you can see, the visible part is vanished. Still, the perimeter, or the barrier as the info for the game will remain, and this is very important, so the game knows where the habitat is. However, for the case that the pandas can swim and go out of here and cross this invisible water, the game reckons the animals to be escaped. Therefore, if they can swim, we might want to do something else in the next episode. So yeah, this is going to be very interesting, right? Okay, cool. Now, this is done. Let's hit escape and escape again. As you can see, this is our finished habitat. Isn't that great? I mean, it looks fairly simple. We've done this in 10 minutes. There's nothing happened. And it's pretty easy for them to use it now, right? I mean, everything is done, the fence is set, the habitat works. If I click on it, you can see it's set, you can see the outlines, you can change different things. We have no animals in here right now, so I think it's time to call it a day for the barriers, because this is all you needed to know. There is basically no more about this what you need to know. Great, right? Okay, cool. Now, all the tricks I showed you work with every type of fence, obviously. If you just decide that you don't want to have this backside over here out of wood, you can always go in and say, hey, I want to have like a chain link. Okay, do it that way. If you want to have this gabion over here, and you want to have this gabion to this side, for example, to make sure that the guests have a nicer look to this, because you figured this is nicer next to your path, you can just always change it. And as you can see, it even keeps these climb-proof things, because this is also a wall that the animals could climb. So it's pretty handy. You can lay it out the way you want. I figured I want to keep this actually, because one thing I want to do, I want to make this, and this is now detailing, but you can always create a bit more of a nicer transition into one area. And I want to have this like so, because then we could also create a nice little fencing over here. Same we create on this hand side. Just select the pole, drag it down, here we go. So it doesn't look like really cut off how it was. So I think this looks nice. We can call it a day for this tutorial episode. Now, the next 2 episodes will be about, first of all, the next one is about buildings and, oops, oh my god, I hit my microphone the first time in 3 episodes, woo! Next episode will be about facilities and building in the game, and the next one, the last one is foliage and detailing. So, then this is all rounded off tutorial. I hope that all of them are uploaded by now, so you can just go out and watch the whole playlist. It's about an hour of material. You can download this, as I said, and build alongside me and create the same habitat basically. And afterwards you should be able to kind of create whatever you want in the game, because you know the tools and you can use them. How cool is that? So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope to see you in the next one, and make sure to drop some comments down below about questions you have regarding the barriers. I'm more than happy to answer them as always. See you in the next one. Stay tight and bye guys. Alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. I really do appreciate that. As always, make sure to check out also my social media channels. You can find me everywhere under @Rudi_Rennkamel. Also, big thanks to the crew. You can see it on the left hand side right now. And as always, if you want to see more, you click that card on the top right. And if you want to stick around because you like the stuff you've just saw, whatever, you know what I mean, just click that sub button, which is to the bottom right of the screen right now. But everything else I can say is have a great time and see you next time. Bye guys.
Your skincare routine sucks. Sorry, I had to say it. Here's what most skincare companies...
Hello everyone, and welcome to Planet Zootorial. This is an interactive tutorial series where you will be able to create this in the end. We are going to go there via landscaping, pathing, barriers, buildings, and also foliage, and you will be able to build alongside me with the blueprint provided in the description down below. But now let's jump into the episode and have some fun. Hey there, and welcome back to the next episode of Zootorials. We are in the 4th episode already. This episode is about facilities and building in terms of really creative building, nice looking buildings, how you can use the tools in the building options and the scenery items. We won't get too crazy because it's real time. I don't want to make this too heavy for you guys. You can, if you want to see some crazy stuff, check out my speed builds. If you want to build alongside me, download this blueprint of the finished version, which I show you now. So this is how it looks in the end. But if you want to build alongside me, download this from the description down below, and you will be able to interactively build alongside me. And create the same thing to figure out how it worked and whatnot. So yeah, first 3 episodes were about landscaping, pathing, and barriers and habitat boundaries in general. Now this episode will be all about buildings, as I said, and facilities. So there are a few things which we still have some issues about. We can't get any animals, we can't get any energy, we can't get anything because we have no facilities. Facilities are something new to the Planet franchise in terms of that you need them by heart. And in this game, you will use them according to what the needs are for the dedicated area you are in. One thing you always will need is some kind of stuff for your keepers. Can I basically deactivate the blueprints out of here? Because I don't want to show the blueprints. Is there... an option to not show the blueprints. They are pretty annoying. Anyways, I want to have the bare bone buildings first. You can always use the blueprints if you guys don't want to build yourself, but since this is a tutorial about building, it will make sense to build it. Again, most of the buildings will not be available from the beginning for you guys, so you might want to make sure to check this out in Sandbox to learn, but yeah. So first thing we are going to build here is a keeper hut. The reason for me why I chose the keeper hut over here is basically because I figured that the keeper hut is the thing that makes the most sense, because your stuff will need this to feed the animals. So we are going to place this one. I think I'm going to place this one. Just, come on, go in just a bit off. Okay, well, I just want to kind of create a very, very tight connection here. There we go. And why is this creating? Okay, you might want to... Okay, you know what we do? We just change this with pathing real quick. Again, this is also planned, as I said, because this is always a bit more tricky. So what you want to do is delete this first and then use the facilities to create the pathing in front. So I'm using the keeper hut again and adjust this to the position I want to have it. Drag it off. Okay, I think I want to go until over here. Now it created this grid over here. Now we need also a staff room where the people can go in and relax for a bit. What we will also need for the whole system is a trading center, which I'm going to put down. Oh, where's the trading center? Trading center, where are you? Research center. You know what? We haven't talked about this anyways. You can always type in what you're looking for, and then it should appear in your area as well. Now, I've put this down here. This is all we need in this area. Now, I do show you some more facilities. We are not going to build some crazy scenery around in this episode, but I just want to talk about these things because they are very important for the game. So now we have the keeper hut, which is for preparing food, with the staff center, staff room, where they can relax a little bit, get more energy back, and also train. We have the trade center. This is where you get your animals from. And then we have some more stuff. And we have, by name, we have the quarantine. We have the research center. We have also the vet center. And we also have the workshop. These are the ones that we have as staff rooms as well. Now, what do they do? So the quarantine does basically what you would expect. If there is an animal, some other things, the utilities, and this is also very important. We have 3 different types of energy utilities. We have the wind turbine, with a transformer, and we have a solar panel. These are very important when it comes to providing energy to your rooms and also how much they affect an area. The transformer has the most power, however it's not clean, while the wind turbine is the most cleanest one, has kind of a small footprint, but it also has a small radius. So now we use a transformer over here first of all. And as you can see, it shows you this radius and how many buildings would be inside this one. So if I'm putting this here, you can see I would miss out on 1 building, would I? No, it's actually in. So we could actually build this transformer. I want to rotate this one like this. And we also need the water treatment. As you can see, same thing here. The radius is basically set. And it only needs to touch the water volume. That's enough. You don't need to have the whole water volume covered. It's enough if you just touch it. So I want to put this one over here. Great. Now I've created this little bit of a center, so to say, where our staff members can be. Now the one thing I didn't like is the pathing over here. I just want to change the pathing again. This is pretty simple. Just delete it and connect it again. It can be as easy as that. Oh, I just used the wrong texture. Here we go. And we basically also want to connect these 2 things. Hello, can we do this? Yes. And we create a connection over here, which is kind of ugly. Again, as we learned, we can always smooth it out. Here we go. That looks a lot nicer now. So we have created this staff area. Everything is connected. All facilities you need are in here. So I put them a little bit more away because we are not going to use them in here. We need them to make sure that the habitat later on works. I just put them a bit further off and connect them quickly with the path because I basically want to make sure that this works. So yeah, just kind of connecting all the paths over here. It's always a bit tricky, to be honest, but as you can see, if you just got the hang of it, it should be pretty easy. And just connect all the stuff over here so our staff members can use this area. It's not important for the tutorial, but now you know about all the buildings, we can start actually build, because facilities are done. everything we need, and I want to make sure that this looks a lot nicer, right? Because if our guests go along here, they don't want to see this ugly bare bone area whatsoever, right? And what you want to make sure with buildings always is make sure from where people would look at this area. So as you can see from over here, they don't even see that much of these buildings, you know. You don't even need to spend too much time on the roofing over here because the front is already covered. The other way around, you want to spend some more time on the roofing because the rest is, you know, covered anyways. And if we go over here, you can see that the left hand side is more relevant than the right hand side. Okay, so this in mind, we are going to build. Now, again, as I said, I want to keep it very, very simple here. So what we want to do, we start off with the construction of our basic building. You can see in this tab over here, you have a lot of different areas what you can use with architecture, signs, lights, props, centerpieces, special effects, and art shapes. They have all different purpose. We are going to talk about them while we do it. We start with the architecture, and then you can see there's a new tab opening with the more options. Wonderful, isn't it? So first thing we are going to do, we are going to look for walls, because this is what we want to do. And in the wall section you have the arches, which contains some doors, and we are going to use them doors. I guess they are in the wall pieces, right? Yeah, they are wall pieces. There you can see this is the concrete wall door, and we are going to use not the concrete one. We are going to use, because I want to make this a bit more Asian looking at the end. Where do we have this one? As you can see, there's a whole lot of stuff in here. I want to have the plaster wall. And where is the plaster wall? There we go. This is the plaster wall. So I'm just building these doors, as you can see, pretty simple, and then I'm using the plaster wall to round off the building. It is very simple, you know, it's very, very that simple. You can't do anything wrong here. Just build the building as I just did over here. Now I wanted to keep them open. The only thing I wanted to do, I want to have like a little bit of an overhanging roof here. So what I do, I look for some arches and the plaster arches and do it this way to create some kind of open area already. I'm gonna you know, show you why I did this. So we can also change the color of the plaster. Do we want this? I don't know. Do we want this? I think I'm gonna go with this color actually, because I like this very subtle, it's that kind of subtle reddish color. I like it, to be honest, but I want this to look a lot more interesting. You know, we want to have this like a little bit of an Asian building. Okay, cool. So there are some kind of cool roofs in here. You can always go and also go for the theme and say, okay, we want to have East Asia. Okay, so this gives you all the props. I would always recommend to have all the props in. You can use search for it, but I figured that most of the items are useful for many, many different things, and therefore I wouldn't just kind of category wise just delete them by just declicking the filter. You always want to have them visually available for you because they might help you in certain cases. Okay, so what we want to have is the painted clay roof. I want to have like a clay roof over here. I don't know why exactly, but let's use the clay roof. So as I said, I wanted to have this one as an overhanging roof over here. So this is done. Okay, cool. But I want to also have a nicer roof over this whole area. Now what I do is I decrease the grid size. We haven't talked about that. You have control of the grid. You can change it from 4 meter width to 2 meters. That means the steps in which you're using these pieces are smaller. Cool, isn't it? So we are using this to create some kind of nicer looking appeal to it. So what I want to do, I want to have like, I think I'm going to start off with this roof and build this like that. And then I also want to have this corner piece. Oh, that's the wrong one. You always want to make sure that you have the same angle activated. Okay. And then make sure that you guys keep an eye on the grid. You always want to have like a 2 or like a 4 meter grid to use these pieces, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to fit them in. Then you would have overlapping, as I show you right now. Be overlapping, not that nice. Okay, now I'm just putting in these pieces simply as it is, like so. And then I want to create in the middle a bit of a more Asian look, and this works by using a bit of a more steep roof. There we go. This is what I did. It already has a little bit of an Asian appeal to it, and I just figured that I don't like how this turned out, because we can still use the same roof, right? Again, that was a little bit of intention, because I wanted to show you how to easily now copy this side to this side. But before doing so, we have an open space here, right? And it would be smart to have this closed off before you copy it over, because you would do the work double, you know? And you don't need to do this. You need to kind of you know, be as effective as possible. And I don't want to have the same kind of plaster over here. I want to have like a bit of a variant in here. And I figured this could be the right one to use because that looks like it fits in here, right? Okay, let's try this. And oh boy, it does fit in. And it actually also looks kind of decent with the stone texture, doesn't it? Cool. So we can now select the pieces by simply clicking them. Hold down Shift to select multiple pieces. Now I click this one. And you have to be in a group. We are now in a building group. You can see this by the yellowish outlines. It kind of shows you that you are in a lovely building group. And this helps because in the group you can select pieces. Okay, cool. Now click the different pieces you want to have. These are the 4 pieces in my case I want to have. And then you can click Control D for duplicate. Control D will duplicate your thing. As you can see, you have the same thing. Now you can rotate by pressing the Y or Z key. And then you're just rotating it, pressing the Z key, and you're good to go. Just move it into the position you want to have. Done. Isn't that great? You have created the same roof on the other hand side without actually doing it because you just used the tools in the game. Okay, that's awesome. Now, there's one thing I don't like. I like how this turned out with the overhanging roof over here. Now, this looks pretty stupid. I want to have this all moved in a bit more. Now, again, you can also just copy things over or you can move it. You just choose these things. You're not happy with the position of the roof. Just click M. And then you can drag it. Now, as you can see, damn, my step is too big. You can just simply change the grid size again, and you have a 2-meter step here. That's better. Nice, done. This opening section in the middle you can easily get rid of by selecting those pieces again, copy, duplicate with Control D, put it in the middle, and it's done. How cool is that? Okay, cool. Now, as the roof is done, let's go to the next point. Okay, so the next point will be detailing the building. Now we have the basic shape of the building. You have learned about everything. We've looked at the sidelines, right? Okay, this is all fine. You can't see too much from over here. Everything is nice. Everything is fine. But now you want to make sure that this building looks a bit nicer. Okay, so there are some simple tricks to just use and make this look immediately a lot better. So what you can always do is use pillars. You know, pillars are something very, I don't know why they are working this way, but pillars are basically working wonders. They always create a bit more of depth, a bit more of interesting look and stuff. So I want to use them to the edges over here to give this building a bit of a more supported look. So I'm moving them over. Now we are using the gizmo. I have worked a lot on the grid right now. Now I'm using pieces that are not on the grid. So you can see there's not the grid displayed for us right now, which is why we can use these pieces a lot more easy now by manipulating their position in a complete 360-degree area. We don't need to care about the freaking grid or grid size or whatever. If you want to duplicate these pieces, you can do this by selecting them again, as I did with holding down Shift, but now you don't press Control D, you do press Control and X. This will create a duplicate of duplicating these pieces, and then you can see you can move them along with this wonderful gizmo over here. Now as we move them over, they will be in the same exact position, moving alongside the axis you've just chosen. Okay, cool, we've done this. It looks fairly nice, but one thing that stood out to me, we don't have that Asian appeal to the roof, you know, these kind of roundish things to the roof. So now what can we do? What could we do about this? We can always use different pieces to create this. I want to go with this roundish thing first. This is like a little wooden post. And what I do, I just go in and use it. Now, we've always used the angle snap. Now I want to be a bit more creative, and I deactivate the angle snap by hitting spacebar, and it should deactivate the angle snap. As you can see, it is deactivated. Now I can move again without having the restrictions of the angle snapping. I can now move it on the full 360 degrees of the circle. Now let's create a very subtle step each time we move it. As you can see, here we go. That's nice looking. So this creates a wonderful, lovely little look, as you would expect it from the Asian kind of style stuff. Now I want a bit more detail in here. So we just, you know, now I am not yet an expert of where exactly all the pieces are. And this is why I only recommend to just search for various pieces. I figured that this piece over here could look nice as a supporting piece in the middle. As you can see, this is some kind of Indian wall light bracket. But again, this is exactly what I just said. Don't use the same like don't filter by the area, because sometimes pieces are so good that you can use them in different settings, and this is why I always recommend to keep them on. Now I think there could be something else in here. Maybe we need to have like a little bit of a plank. And the wonderful thing about Planet Zoo is the pieces they use are so much smaller than they have been in Planet Coaster, and this helps you create a lot nicer looking things. I wanted this very subtle effect on top here to make it look a bit detailed, and I think this is what I want to go with. It's a bit more like, you know, it's a bit more kind of freestyle I did here. It might not even be too accurate, but it looks decent. So you don't even need to make that much. You know, this is now a little detail and you can copy it over. Simply go in and just select with this box over here the pieces. You can see sometimes it needs a bit more, and you can click with shift and you have them. Now I would recommend, if you want to copy it over, you can use Control X again, and then you move it all over. Make sure to have angle snap activated, and then just rotate it 180 degrees. Move it into the same direction. As you can see over here, I move it so that the bracket is actually connecting to this area. Done. Wonderful. You have a little bit of detail over here now, and the building immediately looks better. What I always recommend to do is also to get some kind of stuff in here, because this looks pretty bare bone, doesn't it? Now, we don't have them flat roofs in here as we had them in Planet Coaster. There are some, but not too many. So I want to use this plank over here. The problem is I can't recolor it, so I always want to use this and see how it does look from the bottom part. It looks fairly good to me. It looks fine. And now just move it in. Make sure that you adjust the grid size to what you need, and then you can just build this over here pretty simply. Just click them in. I created 3 of them now to make sure that I have them. Select them all, and since I'm lazy, I'm just copying them over. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's one more. Boom, in. Everything is done. It already looks a lot nicer. Cool. So we've done this. Now let's create a little bit more of detail here by adding some ground, yeah, well, I would call it texture, because I want to make sure that this looks a bit nicer. And also a bit more Asian. So you can use various pieces. It's always pretty handy to search for some nice stuff. I figured I have some cool stuff in here that I want to use, and this is the timber railing, which you can just use down here. Make sure that you fit this to the wall. Here we go. Easy. Okay, this is done. Now you have a bit of detailing in. It always helps also to create maybe like a little bit of a pillar. And I want to go and create this somewhat in the middle here. I think I'm fairly happy with having it here. And just create it like that. And let's also move this to the top, so to give it a bit more interesting look to the top. Cool. This is done. Awesome. I like how this looks. You know, gives the whole thing a bit more of depth. Now, the corners look pretty ugly, right? Because they don't really have a nice corner piece. So I want to use the same piece over here to make sure that I round off the corner. And I've done the same thing. Awesome. Now, the whole stuff is done. I think I like how this looks from this side already, right? I've said if the guests go past, this side is more important. So what I want to do now is give this same thing the look. Obviously, we can't use these pieces, so I'm only selecting the pieces we can use. Have selected them all. Control X again to duplicate. Now only rotate by 90 degrees. Here we go. Move it in as you're happy with the position. You can drag it in again. Now, make sure to use it where you really want to use it, because if you go here, it makes sense to have this connected to this corner piece as well, because that kind of creates the same look. And then just click it and move it all over. Now, I did one mistake over here, which I'm going to fix in a second. This is the pillar we have from the side. I can delete this and use this a little bit thinner one over here. Awesome. Created. Done. So this is pretty nice. We have a lovely little staff building. There's nothing fancy about this one, but it already looks pretty okay-ish, right? So this is done. We will cover this up in the next episode with foliage. I don't want to do too much more. You could create a fence or whatever in front if you want. We will do this with foliage. Don't worry about this, but I want to do one more thing about building to show you guys how this is simply done. And create a fencing in here. I want to have a fence, but an own fence. You know, I don't want to use the in-game fence. I want to create my own one. Now I go to construction again and search for a basic piece I want to use. I figured that this one's pretty interesting to start with, because I felt this could be a cool piece. So let's see if we can recolor this. Hey, that's pretty cool. We can. So let's change this color if the game allows me to. It really doesn't at the moment. Let's do this again. There we go. Okay, that was maybe my bad. But I want to go with like nearly fully brown. Here we go, because I want to have this as a simple piece. And I want to now make this somewhat Asian looking, or at least that it fits to this area. So let's use this piece again. And we need another piece. So we hit Ctrl X. And you can see it creates this again. Now we have two pieces and I want to have a group, because building in a group is always better. Now I select them too. There is the option to merge them into a senior group. We haven't talked about this, but you can always merge stuff together into one group by selecting connected to this corner piece as well, because that kind of creates the same look. And then just click it and move it all over. Now I did one mistake over here, which I'm going to fix in a second. This is the pillar we have from the side. I can delete this and use this little bit thinner one over here. Awesome, created, done. So this is pretty nice. We have a lovely little staff building. There's nothing fancy about this one, but it already looks pretty okay-ish, right? So this is done. We will cover this up in the next episode with foliage. I don't want to do too much more. You could create a fence or whatever in front if you want. We will do this with foliage. Don't worry about this, but I want to do one more thing about building to show you guys how this is simply done, and create a fencing in here. I want to have a fence, but an own fence. You know, I don't want to use the in-game fence. I want to create my own one. Now I go to construction again and search for a basic piece I want to use. I figured that this one's pretty interesting to start with, because I felt this could be a cool piece. So let's see if we can recolor this. Hey, that's pretty cool. We can. So let's change this color if the game allows me to. It really doesn't at the moment. Let's do this again. There we go. Okay, that was maybe my bad. But I want to go with like nearly fully brown. Here we go, because I want to have this as a simple piece. And I want to now make this somewhat Asian looking, or at least that it fits to this area. So let's use this piece again. And we need another piece. So we hit Ctrl X. And you can see it creates this again. Now we have two pieces and I want to have a group, because building in a group is always better. Now I select them too. There is the option to merge them into a senior group. We haven't talked about this, but you can always merge stuff together into one group by selecting them with the select tool and then click merge into senior group. Done. How cool is this? Cool. We have done this. Now let's see if there is any piece we can use. And it would be clever to use the same pieces we have used a little bit beforehand. Now this seems to be big for me. Maybe I don't want to use this then. This one is also too big. Okay, is there anything we can use over here? I figured this one looks fairly cool to be used. So I want to make sure that this is somewhat in here in the middle, which is nice. And now what we need is kind of a railing as well. I want to have this one as the railing. Oops, I forgot to have angle snap. Sometimes I'm just stupid. Select the piece again. Make sure that angle snap is activated, because, oh, well, this time it already has the same, the right rotation. Here we go. Awesome. This is what we want to have. Cool. This is our little fence. And now as this group is done, you can move this group around, which is pretty cool. Now, we don't need to do this now externally. We can just bring this into the position where we want to have it. And then just simply move it into the exact position, which would be this one. Open the group. By the way, you can open the group by pressing the R key on your keyboard, which will then make you move into the thing. Sometimes the gizmo is a bit finicky, so you want to make sure that you use it to your favor by just, you know, try to select as many pieces. Sometimes this is easier to create a very good gizmo orientation. But yeah, so you know what we do, we just try now to build this fence as nice as possible. Don't want to spend too much time on this now, because you basically, I think you got the idea, right? Select everything again, just move it over. You can see pretty quickly, after just creating the very basic shape of this fence, we created a very nice looking fence in basically no time. Actually super easy, no big deal. You can always use all the pieces to get creative. And as you can see, we used now African pieces and Asian pieces to create this fencing over here. It looks nice, doesn't it? So I'm very happy with the fence over here. Now, the last bit I always would do, make sure that you put in some guest stuff first, because this always gives you a hint of how this area can look like. So there's some cool East Asia canopy. I would also recommend to sometimes have these kind of things in. I also figured that this piece, can I also, okay, that's pretty interesting. Maybe we can create some cool stuff with it. Huh. I feel like I like this quite a bit. So let's do this as a last thing to show you. You can always hit the V key on your keyboard to align this to a certain height. If you press the V key again, it will always remain at the same height. And if you press it again, you can see it doesn't align again. So if you move it down, it will always stay here and not align. Press V again, it automatically creates this aligning option for you. It's not always usable, but anyways, I want to make this a bit more like so, and put this thing over here. One other one goes in here, and I don't want to destroy too much of the view, you know. I want to make more of these on top of this hill. One more here, one more here, and one more here, and I just figured that it would maybe make sense to have the same fence on top. So let's go in and select a few of those pieces and copy them over. This time we use Control D because this will let you move this a bit more free, and rotate this with the Z key. Now we are just creating this fence on top of this building, this little hill, and now because I want to make sure it's the same, exact same position, I use Control X again and put this into the exact position. So we have created in basically less than 25 minutes this building and this wonderful looking area already. Now, as this is done, all the facilities are connected, let's move on to the last episode, which is foliage and detailing, until we finally have our wonderful animals in this area. So see you in the next one. If you have more questions to a building or whatnot, make sure to drop them in the comments down below. We see each other in the next episode. Stay tight, have a good day, and bye bye. Alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video.
Forward.
Hello everyone, and welcome to...
Because we're a little bit behind him at the moment, so we're going to catch up and get this top section done. keep going too far because it starts to go up. Although, there we go. I think we're caught up with him now. Got some umbrellas and some fencing. So we will keep going. Last one. We're gonna do all the foliage, and this thing hopefully is gonna look a lot better because it's looking rough. It's looking a little rough.
Planet Zootorial. This is an interactive tutorial series where you will be able to create this in the end. We are going to go there via landscaping, pathing, barriers, buildings, and also foliage, and you will be able to build alongside me with the blueprint provided in the description down below. But now let's jump into the episode and have some fun. Hey there everyone and welcome. We are taking a look at foliage and detailing. So we are back in our little zoo. If you are new to the tutorial and you haven't seen the first fourth episode, this is what we did. And yeah, you can just download this park to build alongside us. Between the fourth and the fifth episode, I've changed a few things. Before we go in, I just quickly mentioned them so you guys know what to do. So I put all the habitat things in that our red pandas need. Also, I put some red pandas in, made them a little shelter. That's it. Basically, I did this to avoid too long of an episode, just to making these things which are pretty obvious and most of you guys will know anyways. However, we are now having some things to do. First of all, we have to look into the habitat itself. So I'm sorry, that wasn't for the beginning, it was actually about my voice. So, I don't know, my throat is a little bit itchy today, scratchy, whatever. We don't have any plants in here, as you can see. Before we will do some general foliage stuff, we will work on this habitat to set the
shelter he's using I'm gonna pause again, and we will start.
Tone to set the theme. I would highly recommend to do this because this will also make sure that you are in the, in the environment that your animals are live in, and the game gives you a good idea about what you need, and this is in the environment tab. So it tells you which kind of plants from which different biomes and which continent you need. So this is what we want to do. We head over to the nature tab down here, then we open up not the favorite one, the filters, go to biome, and we click those two, taiga and temperate. However, there's also another additional information. This is continents. We want to hit the continent, and this is Asia. So we're wanting to put in Asia. Here we go. So now we have all the plants that do they are available for us, but they also do exist in these areas. So this is what your animals will favor. As you can see, now 1% of the coverage is filled. However, we definitely need the cherry blossom because this is what you would expect for these kind of animals anyways. You would hate me if I won't do it. So let's put them in. There's also like a bigger version of this one, which I definitely want to have in the back here, just to cover off the food area a little bit. You can see the satisfaction goes up a little bit, but there's just so much more in here. So one thing which is also very important, you have to make sure that these animals can't climb over your walls. So you do want to put a little bit of attention towards your positioning of the plants. However, if you want to make things look naturally, you also want to make sure that you will blend in some of the more edgy areas of your habitat or whatever. So what I want to do is I want to make this whole line over here a lot more integrated into the whole scene and setting. So therefore I'm using a lot of these plants that kind of ground shrubbery, so to say, that do cover up few more places than just a little bit. And you can also use bigger plants to make sure that you cover a greater scope. So for example, you can use the bamboo as well to create a little bit more of a nice sideline to this little lake over here. Make sure to just vary the rotation everywhere and spam the Z key. So therefore you make sure this is how you guarantee that it looks natural and it doesn't look too copied, because if it, I'm just quickly showing it to you, if you just use them all over the same, you can see it looks very unnatural, very kind of man-made, which you don't want to have. You want to have this all as natural as possible. You can always use little bits and pieces everywhere to cover up some ugly corners. I'm also a big fan of using the bigger bamboo in the places like here to make sure that we fence off this area a little bit, so it kind of looks nice and also serves a purpose. So it does actually help us to cover up this ugly transition into this area which we don't need. So I like this tree quite a bit, so I want to have this incorporated up here because I know that the red pandas can climb on that one, so this is why I want to put this here. And I'm planning also to have some of the bigger trees in the back to give it a nicer back area. So kind of just using the foliage already to create an overall environment for your habitat. So you can see this is how you create this, and it already starts to look nice. But now, as we have taken care of our animals in the habitats themselves, it's getting a lot more dark in here because of the sun, but we could easily redirect the sun. Now imagine the animals could swim, like pandas. Let me just have a look, but I'm quite sure they can. Well, maybe they can swim, but they won't. So if you go in, we can always check with the traversable area, which I've already pre-activated as a service for you guys. You can see they can't swim, so they won't be able to go here. But imagine they would be able to get over to the side like they would be swimming. Then I left this one in. This would be potentially an area where they could climb out and escape our habitat, because if we click the barrier, you can see the null fence is just passing by here, and the moment the panda is going out of here, it definitely gets a problem. What is the alert though? Let me just put, what is the alert? I don't know what. Oh, okay, it's a disease going on. Never mind. Okay, so we don't need to count that. So if you have this issue over here and you want to make sure that the animals can't escape, there is my trick for you guys, and this is, it's not a big deal, not at all, but it's very, very useful, and people start changing the terrain again, and this is going to create some serious issues because of the water volume and stuff. I always recommend use the rocks to your favor, because there are some of the bigger rocks in here that have a very nice long and wide line to them, or like one of the sides. They're pretty high, I think 4 meters in total, and you can always use them to create very nice natural borders. They don't only look good, they only serve the purpose that it does prevent the animals from escaping. A lot more actually effective than the fencing, so I would always recommend to kind of keep an eye on what you want to do with with the rocks and stuff, because they always serve as a wonderful natural border to your habitat. So I'm just putting them all over in here, creating this area to look nicer. We can also use it a bit more like so to actually make this whole area look good. So foliage is also not only plants and trees, it's also just stones, a lot of rocks and stuff. It always creates a more interesting looking area. As you can see, I'm also just spamming it over, and it's kind of a natural movement that I have the rotation on my key already before I put them down, to make sure that I never use the same rotation again. I also varied the textures a bit, so you can see there are a lot of nice rocks that have a nice variation in the texture, so I'm always using those to my favor as well. Sometimes I just move them into each other to create a new kind of rock structure. So this always helps you to make this all look a lot more interesting to look at, but also keeps your zoo interesting in terms of variation of nature and stuff. So as we've done this, we have to do one more thing, and this is cover up our stuff area in the back, because we have now created a very nice look into this area in general. What we will do now, we will basically cover up this area with foliage, but also with rocks. So I always love to draw a line with some of the big boulders first. So very, very easy. Don't go too crazy. Just use the bigger ones, vary them a bit so that this doesn't look too copied. And then you can also sometimes use the smaller ones, but always use a bigger boulder then to create a higher, like, you know, sideline, so to say, that you make sure basically you can't see stuff which is behind. This always helps to create a nicer looking zoo in the end. It's not really necessary in terms of your guests. If you have enough foliage anyways, they will consider this to be themed nicely, but I always love to have like a bit nicer looking area. So as you have done this, you can start playing around with more of the ground shrubbery. I always like to give my pathing a bit of a sideline and a bit of a curb. If there is no curb installed, just kind of make this with some foliage, and also be brave and break the mood a little bit. Just go in ever so slightly. Yes, people will walk through, but there is no such a thing than a perfect straight line in any zoo. Like, yes, some examples will be there out there, you can show them to me, but in total there is no such a thing than a completely perfectly flat nice way. You won't even find this out there, I promise you. And so this is why I really love to just break it every now and then. Just go in, put some of the foliage, you know, just hang it over into the path area, just ever so slightly. You don't need to create something crazy. You can just go wherever you want to. Also, as you can see, I'm not using the filter any longer, because now you can use whatever foliage you want. If you want to stick to a certain theme, okay, hit the filter again and use that one, but for the moment it should be fine the way it is. As you can see, there is plenty of stuff you can use. Well, I shouldn't use a water lily over here. I want to use also some of the other trees to make sure I give my building a bit of context, so to say. You know, it's completely up to you. You can put all these trees in exactly the way how you like. I always like to create, as I said, a little bit of an area here. Maybe just round this up. And now I'm looking for some of the, oops, this wasn't what I wanted. I can't see. Yeah, some of the smaller stuff over here to use some bushes, and I definitely want to have some of the blossom trees here as well in the front. You can see I'm just using a lot of the stuff to make it all look a bit more interesting, a bit more variation in here. You can also use these kind of broken down every now and then to make sure that you have some more interesting stuff going on. Yeah, yeah, let's put this cherry blossom here, and the other one, oh well, let's use the smaller one that goes in here. Perfect. I'm pretty much happy with how it looks already. The only thing I'm not happy with is this kind of area over here. Let's just quickly get in with another tree here. Awesome. And let's put some basic boulders beneath to give it a bit more of context. And then my last kind of a little bit of an advice I have for you guys is at the end of this episode, when we have finally, you know, put all the pieces in here, how you basically create the detailing. So now we have done the foliage. There's a difference of man-made foliage and trying to make it look naturally. This is definitely more the man-made kind of stuff. What you do here is a bit more looking natural, as you can see. So this is definitely, you know, following the lines makes it all look a lot more natural, less natural than it could be. One thing, you can also use these boulders. I like to use them also sometimes as little fences. So just bring them in here to kind of you know, make this look a bit nicer. I think that's kind of the first little detailing you could say. But now it gets really important to use the terrain painting again. I couldn't show this to you in the terrain episode, obviously, because there was not all the stuff in here. You can always use the painting later on to give the whole area a bit more context, because plants always create a difference in texture as well. Below the blossom tree, you wouldn't have that much grass. Next to the pathway over here as well. Just make sure that you give them a bit of a, you know, nicer texture below. It always creates a lot more feeling for your area. You can basically orient yourself, or just make sure that you keep to the stuff you put down. And then you can also, you know, experiment with some other stuff as well. Make it brighter, make it darker, but just make sure that you have a bit more texture going on. As you can see, this also created a way better looking area already. Cool, so we have done this. The left hand side is done. Now the only thing I'm doing is, and I'll take you with me on this very short journey now, I want to create a bit of nice foliage over here to just round this area off. I'm just putting down some bushes here, also searching for some bigger stuff to, you know, because I'm lazy and I don't want to make this whole stuff too long now for you guys. And there we go. I could also activate, this is by pressing V, your foliage is aligning to the terrain again. Sometimes it makes sense to use it. Most of the times I don't use it because it always creates weird areas, but sometimes it's very useful, as it is over here right now. Just make sure that you put them all in and then move them down a tiny bit as well. Yeah, to prevent it from looking very strange. But you can see with trees it's getting a bit problematic, but because no tree in this world would grow like that. So yeah, I'm using the normal kind of way now again. But wow, this is kind of a huge tree. Let's put this one. I don't want to put this huge tree there because I feel like it's not working. Let's put another one here. I want to have another cherry blossom tree on here. There were some other cool trees giving a bit more color to the area. Let's use that one. This is one of the large tree, the Huiren large tree. Interesting. Some of the names I can't really pronounce. This is weird. Okay, so I think I'll put this tree here. Awesome. Okay, now let's get to the detailing, and the detailing is pretty easy, guys, because what you want to do is to finish off an area, you always use the path props as well, because this creates kind of the finishing touches. So now you can see we are missing out on lampposts, we are missing out on benches and stuff. We're just going to plop them in now. Let's put some benches here with the little, with this little canopy here. Same goes to this canopy if I can. I can't go that close. Oh well, let's move on to the tree then. Put them here. Also want to have some benches up here so that the people have a nice view down to this area. Then we put some bins down. We have the East Asian bin anyways. I want to have one here. The other one goes to this area. Put this here. Make sure also to not block the area where the people stand and look into. Make also sure to have it on both sides of the pathway, otherwise this is going to look a bit ridiculous. You could also go in and use this free space over here to create a lovely nice seating area. Is there actually some of the stuff I would love to have for the Asian area? Not really though. I mean, we have this one. Oh well, you know, for the moment we use this. I'm not the biggest fan of that one though. But hell, let's use it. And then give this a bit of a context by using those two things. And put another one here. I'm not even sure if guests will use it or will go through it. I'm not even sure about that. So, as we've done this, we want to make sure that we also have an ATM here because people want to give us money, right? Okay, we've done this, and we can also now go in with these lovely donation boxes and put them right next to here, and another one goes also to the top here, and then we also give them a bit of an education board, which always makes sense to make the area look nicer. Can I just deactivate this for a moment? Because yeah, thank you. I had no idea where to put it though. Now let's say the deforestation will be a good thing for our pandas, and as you can imagine, the last thing we need is obviously more education boards, and there is this one blueprint. There we go. There's the education stand. I want to put this behind this bench over here to not create a too crazy blocking area of view. So I want to put this other one here. Just raise this a bit. Here we go. And we put obviously another one to the top here where the people can stand and watch. Alright, so since we only have one animal, we want to put this animal onto the boards. Obviously, this is the easiest thing to do. And here we go, done. The only thing missing for our pandas is, and you know what, I'm lazy now because I totally forgot about that, is some climbing stuff, and we are going to use a lazy little blueprint here. Maybe even two. Let's give them another one, which is kind of sitting on top here. Oh, I like so. Okay, cool. I think the climbing need might even be fulfilled. I'm not even sure. Let's give them another one so they can climb also over the water and people can watch them. I think that's fairly okay. So now as we've done this, guys, that's it. The tutorial's done. Just a little summary for you guys. Foliage is, you know, you can use it in two ways. Either create something man-made looking, which could be nature, or you can make something more natural looking, which is very useful for habitats to make them look a lot more natural in comparison to what you would create else. And then yeah, just go crazy and experiment it. Use a lot of rocks also to fill in the gaps, because the rocks in Planet Zoo have an awesome texture. Make sure also to use the terrain, which I haven't done over here, so we can just quickly fix that and create. So you can actually see the difference in no time when I do this. Just, you know, paint a little bit below here. You can also again vary also with some rock. And then if you think it's too much, you can also brush over with the grass again, and it creates a lovely, nice effect. You can always go also next to the path to just, you know, create something like that. And here we go. That's it. We are done, guys. The wonderful red fluff panda area is done, and therefore we are just having a little look to these beauties. Look at this one. Oh, it's so awesome. Awesome. Okay, this is not an awesome video to look at animals. This is a tutorial, so behave, Rudi. I hope you guys enjoyed this series of tutorial videos. I hope it was helpful for you. If they were...
We're gonna stop now. Thank you, Rudi. I'm gonna give a shout out. Those were actually really good tutorials. They're fast, especially the last one here that was like fast, like boom, 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 throwing stuff out and putting it in the I have a little bit of rock here. I'm not great with rock work. You watch these content creators and like Rudi and Lady Designer, and they're just like rocks, 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 more rocks, and I just am like, no. The rocks are not my thing. They do make it look so much better. I just can't. I need like a really good how to place rock tutorial. I don't know. Maybe I just need more practice. Dog hair on my screen. Is that a dog hair or is my screen scratched? But the red pandas are happy, so I mean that's what's important, right? We have 79% happiness. Put some more toys in there for them. Oh good, they can get up there. That's good. And they can climb that tree. They can climb those trees too. No escape points. We're doing I guess we'll probably complain that there's not enough too far away or something. Or they'll like stand here at the wall and watch that. That always amuses me. I'm like, it's a solid wall, guys. You can't see anything. So that was the plan for today. To do that. I'm actually, it's not, I don't think I'm ever going to be happy, like 100% happy with something I build. I think there's always going to be things where I'm like, oh, I wish this could look better. I'm always going to want to keep tweaking it, I think. So, considering, I mean, it doesn't look bad. This actually is probably a better habitat that I built. I mean, it's not space going on. People don't want to go up top, but that's fine. So, I mean, it's not a bad habitat. I just... Oh, he just knocked the box down. Look at him go. Having a good old time. What do we got? Tickets are underpriced. I like that. Water treatment inaccessible. What? Animal talk inaccessible. What? Place too far from the animal. Alright, well that one will move then. We will move that. Oh look, it has power now. Even better. So yeah, I think it's not bad. I think I could add more rocks over here. Just rocks. Are not my favorite thing. So, and I can obviously do more rocks and trees and stuff on the outer parts, but I think it's not half bad. I'm actually pretty happy with it. Gonna be honest. Yeah, I like it. I think it came out looking pretty good. So thanks, Rudi. You made me a believer that maybe I can build awesome looking habitats. Just need some more skills. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed watching today. If you did, hit the like, hit the subscribe buttons, and catch me next time. Probably on replay, because I don't